Hello and welcome back. It's week 4 and we're doing something quite exciting this week because we're really going to start bringing our blanket together. Rather than working more pieces individually, we're going to be working directly into our week 1 panel to create our Christmas lights. We're bringing this panel in now because there's some extra skills that we're going to be building on from what we've done in previous weeks. And the main one, as you'll probably notice, is we've got quite a few different colours we're going to be bringing in to create this really fun and impactful changing lights that go all the way around our central panel. So we've got some of the colours we've used before, and we're also introducing our tomato red. We've got our bright lemon and our pink, our emerald green and our gentle jade, all on a base of cream. So we're going to talk through this in more detail next, but we're also going to be using some little bobbins this week. The technique, I suppose you would call it, that we're using is more of an intarsia style. So we're introducing lots of individual colours for all of the different lights, but we're not carrying them all the way around with us. The only yarn that goes all the way around our panel is our cream, and then the individual colours of the lights are just held on little bobbins so that as we come back and forth in our rounds, turning each time, we're picking them up and working with them and then sort of leaving them on the back of the work until we come back next time. So as I said, we will talk through the bobbins in more detail, but whether you use this or something else, we are going to need some form of way to manage our yarns, and I will talk you through that step by step. At the end of this week, there's another skill we're going to be adding, and that is surface crochet. So the lovely emerald string that you see holding our lights together is made, again, it's crochet, you don't have to do any sewing, and it's a really fun technique that's basically forming chains on the top of our work. So once we've added in all our colours, we've worked all of our lights, that will be the last thing we do this week to add our surface crochet. I'll even show you how to do a little loop-the-loop if you want to add one of those in. And I think it makes for a really impactful design right in the centre of our blanket because we've got so many different colours, and we also have that sort of bold emerald line on the cream background, which makes everything really pop. So let's work through it step by step. And again, if you're watching this week 4 video, but you're not quite up to date with us yet, please don't worry. You can take it at your own speed, and the videos will be here for as long as you need them to be when you're ready to work your week 4 section. And of course, the other fun thing that we're going to be doing this week, which I know some of you have been itching to do, is to finally ice and decorate our gingerbread house. We're going to create our little door and our window, and I'm also going to show you how to do a surface bobble, and we're going to do another little bit of surface crochet to create some fairy lights to go around our gingerbread house, which are mimicking our own larger lights that we're also adding to our blanket this week. So we've provided the instructions for you to follow this step by step, exactly as we've done it. But obviously the skills that you'll learn doing the surface crochet and the surface bobbles will also give you more skills in your toolkit if you want to change up your decoration a little bit or ice your gingerbread in your own style. So let's get cracking. We work week 4 together, we're going to add our lights, we're going to decorate our house, and when we've finished, we're going to have a super centre for our blanket. So the first colour we're going to need this week is our cream yarn, and we're going to be introducing quite a few other colours, but we're just using this one to start off with. You're also going to need your gingerbread house from week 1 because we're going to be working directly into the top of it. For the purposes of the video, I'm going to be working on a slightly smaller piece, but imagining that this is the top of my gingerbread house, we're going to work through all the stitches and skills we need for this week for you to create your lights. So to begin our first round, using our cream yarn, we're going to attach it to the corner of our gingerbread house square. So find your chain 2 at the corner, and I normally like to start top right, but each of our sides are going to be identical, so it's not essential. Insert your hook into the corner and pull up a loop. And we're then going to chain 2, which counts as a half treble. We then want to work 2 half treble in the first stitch, we're then going to work 58 half treble stitches, which should take us all the way along to the next corner. So go ahead and work 1 half treble into each stitch along. So we're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all of those stitches. Continue until you reach the end, and then we'll work through the next corner together. Once you've worked all your 58 half trebles along the side of your first gingerbread side, you'll have reached the corner. And into the corner we want to work 1 half treble, 2 chain and another half treble. So for you on your larger panel, that will then see you round to the next side of your gingerbread house, where we're going to do exactly what we've just done there. You're going to be working 2 half treble in the next stitch and then 58 half treble down the next side of the panel until you reach the corner. And you're going to be repeating that from start to start twice more to bring you all the way around your side. So go ahead and continue working the next 3 sides, and I will meet you back at the end of your first round to show you how we're going to join and work our next corner. As you approach the end of the 4th side of your panel and you're ready to join again at the final corner, we are going to work 1 more half treble into the corner. Then we're going to chain 2. And we're going to slip stitch into the top of that first chain 2 we made at the corner when we started the round. So just find the very top of the chain 2. And slip stitch to join. Now for this week we are going to be turning at the end of each round. So we're going to turn our work, and in order to get yourself set up to work again in the corner, at the start of each round we're going to make a slip stitch into the corner. So insert your hook into the corner and slip stitch, and that will get you in a position to begin your round. Now obviously again, for the purposes of the video, I don't have a complete square, but for you, you'll then be working back in the opposite direction. And what that will allow us to do when we start to bring in our other colours is to pick them up and drop them intarsia style in small sections so that we don't have to carry all of our colours all the way around. So just remember, we're turning at the end of each round, and you'll see in your pattern at the beginning of the next round it'll say slip stitch into the corner to start each round. So to begin round 2, once you've slip stitched into your corner, we're going to start with a chain of 2, which counts as a treble, and then we've got a really nice simple round. We want to work 62 half treble across the side of your panel, which will bring you to your next corner. So just as we did on the row below, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches for a half treble. You're going to work 62 half treble all the way along to the next corner, and then we'll work 1 half treble, a chain 2 and a half treble in the next corner. And that will be our stitch pattern for the whole of this round. We're just getting ourselves set up with a nice little base of cream stitches before adding in our colours on the next round. So go ahead and continue working your half treble stitches. I'll meet you at the first corner just to remind you what we're doing there, and then we'll continue with the rest of the round. So when you hit the first corner, we're working 1 half treble, chain 2 and a half treble into the corner. And actually for the rest of this panel, that's how we're going to treat each corner. You then want to work 62 half treble along the other side, and if we take a look at our pattern together, those are our instructions in stars then. We want to work 1 half treble, chain 2, 1 half treble at the corner, 62 half treble down the side, and then repeat that twice more. And again, once you come back round to your final corner, we're going to work it exactly how we did on the previous round. You'll just have 1 half treble to work into the corner, chain 2, and then at the end of each round we're going to slip stitch into the first chain 2 to join before turning and setting ourselves up for the next round. So go ahead and work the rest of round 2, and then I'll join you for the start of round 3, where we're going to start to introduce some of our colourful lights, and I'm also going to talk you through how to prepare your bobbins for the round. So from this point on, we are now going to bring in our yarns for the baubles, and you'll note from your pattern that we're going to start using letters again after the stitches to indicate which colour you will be using for those stitches. But we also want to do just a little bit of preparation to get ourselves ready and to make life easier for ourselves. What we're recommending is creating little bobbins for each of the baubles. So you'll end up with 5 little bobbins on each side. And I'm using these small card ones as an example here. Essentially you need something quite lightweight that's going to be able to grip the yarn and just hold it neatly for you as we're moving around the edge. We need 5 meters of each of our colours for the baubles. So if you want to take a little bit of time now to just prep those and create them, what these will allow us to do is to work our stitches intarsia style. So we'll pick up the colour each time as we're moving back and forth across the rounds. And it just means that our yarns aren't going to get tangled. It's going to keep it all nice and neat and orderly for us, and in theory just make life a lot easier. So I've prepped these 2 here, and I've got one more to create here. So I'm just going to insert the tail end through the little slit and really simply just wrap it round. And then as we make our baubles and we require the different colours, we can just unloop them from the little bobbins and use the amount that we need. So you probably will have a little bit left over from the 5 meters that you add on your bobbin, but just to ensure we're catering for slightly different gauges and different tensions, we're advising 5 meters. So as I've reached the end here, I'm now just going to pop the little tail end into the other slit on the bobbin, and we'll do that at the end of each time we use the colour as well. Now again, as I mentioned, I am doing a smaller swatch than you. I'm not going to be using all of the baubles. I'm just going to do a couple in order to show you the key stitches and techniques. So you will also need to carefully follow your pattern just to make sure that you're bringing in the colours for all your gorgeous baubles to work across the side of each panel. So at the start of the third round, we've already slip stitched into our corner. So we're going to chain 2 in A. And again, that counts as our treble, as it has on our previous rounds. You're then going to work 16 half trebles in A. So again, just as we have been doing. Make 16, and on the 16th, we're going to change colour. So as you work your 16th, we're going to yarn over and insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. But instead of yarning over and pulling through all of those loops with your cream yarn, we're going to bring in our emerald to make our first light. And it's worth noting that this is a right side row. So as we're bringing in extra colours and tail ends, we're going to want our tail ends to sit on the back of the work. So yarning over with emerald and pulling through. And we're now going to make the first couple of stitches for our lights. So we're going to be using a front post treble, and the main differences with post stitches is that rather than working into the top of the stitch, as you normally would with that little V on the top, we instead work it around the post of the stitch underneath. So for a front post treble, we're first going to yarn over. Then we're going to find the post of the stitch underneath that we haven't yet worked into. And it's worth remembering that because we're turning in rows, your stitches are going to look like a little 7. So when we're trying to find the post that we haven't yet worked into, and if you're wondering if it's this one or this one, which is the next one, find the top of the next unworked stitch. And if you're imagining that as a little 7 shape, that then tells us that this is the post we need. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to insert our hook in between the stitches, bringing it round the back of the post and to the front. We're then going to yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. So we're going to make another one of those right next to it. So yarn over again. And rather than working into the top of that stitch, we're going to work around the post. So put your stitch in between the stitches, take it round the back and bring it up between the next one. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2. And because we now want to change colour, we're going to drop our emerald, pick up our cream again, and yarn over and pull through 2 with our cream. And just at this stage, in terms of our bobbin management, you just want to roll up again any sort of excess yarn, pop it back through to keep it nice and neat for when we're going to need it again. So after we've worked our 2 front post trebles in emerald, you then need to work another 28 half trebles, after which you're going to be bringing in another colour for another bauble. Now, because I'm working on a smaller swatch and I'm just showing you one, I'm now going to finish up the side of this panel and work to the corner. So for your purposes, if you continue following the pattern, you want to work 28 half trebles, and then you're going to do the same thing we did here, but with a different colour. And I will meet you as you reach the corner, and I'll talk through how you're going to work the rest of your sides. So as you reach the end of your first side of the third round, we're again going to treat our corners in just the same way as we have been doing. We're going to work 1 half treble, chain 2 and 1 half treble. And what you'll notice then for the next 3 sides is that they are going to be identical to what you did here on the first side. You're going to be bringing in just 2 of your colours for your lights at the moment, because these are the lights that are sitting a little bit lower down in our rows. And then as we work out through the next couple of rows, we'll also be bringing in more colours for the rest of our lights. So continue following the pattern. We're going to work the next 3 sides, and then I will meet you back here for the start of the 4th round to talk through how we are going to work our back post treble stitches as we come back along the row. You meet me back here at the beginning of our 4th round, and you'll note that I've already turned my work ready to start round 4, and our bobbins should now be visible on the front of our work because we're working a wrong side row. So once you've slip stitched into your corner, we're going to start with a chain 2, which counts as a half treble. We then want to work 16 half trebles in cream. And as you're working the 16th half treble, we're going to yarn over and complete that stitch in our emerald. But you should find that you are 1 stitch away from where we worked our front post trebles in emerald. So for this part of our light, we're going to work 4 back post trebles. And so 2 of them are going to sit directly above the ones we've already done, and then we're also going to have 1 either side. So bringing your yarn to the front of your work, which is our wrong side row, just unhook your yarn from its bobbin again so that we're free to use it. And we're going to yarn over with our emerald. So we want to now work 4 back post trebles. And these are very similar to what we did for the front post, but as it suggests, we're going to do the opposite. And so what we're going to end up with when we look at our work is stitches that all look the same from the front of the work. So to work a back post treble, we're first going to yarn over. We're then going to take the hook behind the work, and just like we did before, we're going to bring it up in between the stitches, but we're going, instead of going from front to back like we did last time, we're going from back to front. So it's going to feel quite strange to start off with, but as we get into the swing of these, they become easier to work, particularly as we're working them into the post stitches that are already below. So I'll show you that again. Tuck any tail ends out of the way just to make it clearer for you to see. And we're working into the post of this cream treble that's sitting next to the emerald one we made last time. So yarn over, take your work from back, up in between those 2 stitches, and then down to the back again, yarn over and pull up a loop. So now we're now working at the top of our work as normal, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. So we're going to do that again, and this time we're working around the emerald. So yarn over, insert from back to front, around the post, and out to the back again. Yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. A third back post treble, so take your hook from back to front, over the top of the post, and to the back again. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So we want to make a fourth one of those, and it's going to be over the post of this cream stitch here. And if you remember, we talked about the stitches looking like a 7. This is the top of the stitch and this is the post of the stitch. So yarn over, take your hook from back to front and back again, yarn over and pull up a loop. Mine just slipped off, so I'll show you that again. Yarn over. As I'm trying to do it slowly, my hands have gone all right. So, yarn over, pull through a loop, and yarn over and pull through a loop. So on the back of our work, it's obviously looking a little bit messy. If I just flip you that over to show you how it's looking there, you can see that those 4 back post trebles we made are the same as the front post treble, and it's building up sort of then how our lights look in relief. So spotting the obvious mistake I made, on my 4th one I forgot to colour change. So I'm just going to undo the final yarn over of the stitch, bringing the emerald to the front of the work. I'm going to pick the cream up, and for this pattern we're not going to be breaking our cream yarn, we're just going to allow it to run over the back. But actually it creates quite a fun zigzag, so that by the end of the blanket the lights almost look like they're decorated on the back, and then we can't see any of the colour changes on the front. So yarn over with the cream and pull through to change colour. And again, just make sure that you're keeping your bobbins nice and neat. Secure it back through so that it's sitting on the wrong side of our work. So now that you've done your 4 back post trebles in emerald, you can work 26 half trebles in cream until you reach your next light, and then you're going to do the same thing again. We're going to work 4 back post trebles, and then you'll have 16 stitches left until you reach the corner. So go ahead and carry on following the pattern and working in this way, remembering that when you hit the corners we're always working 1 half treble, chain 2 and a half treble. And a final reminder, after you've done the back post trebles and you're looking for the next stitch to work into, remembering that our stitches look like a 7, this stitch here, we've already worked the post of it. So when we're moving from our post stitches to working normally, we can see this one's already been used, so this is the stitch that we're looking for. You join me back here at the first full corner on the 4th round, and once you've worked to this point too, so you'll have got your 2 different coloured lights in, and again, as for the previous rows in this week, the previous rounds I should say in this week, the next 3 sides are going to be identical to what you've just done. So continue following the pattern, changing colour always on the stitch before we need it, and making sure on this row in particular that you're always keeping your bobbins to the front of the work, because this is a wrong side row. So join me back here when you are ready to start the 5th round. So we're going to be bringing in a few more colours, and so we just have a slightly different stitch count and approach, and I'll talk you through how we're going to manage that. You join me back here at the beginning of round 5. We've slip stitched into our corner, and so we want to chain 2 in A to start. We're then going to do 3 half trebles in A, and on the 3rd of those we're going to be bringing in another light. So before you've yarned over and completed that 3rd half treble in cream, I'm going to bring in, for me it's the Gentle Jade. And just like we did when we started our emerald colour, we want to leave ourselves a long enough tail end to weave in, and we're on a right side row currently, so we want to let any tail ends hang down behind the work. And each one of our lights starts in exactly the same way. We're going to start with 2 front post trebles. So yarn over, ready to start your front post. Find the next 7 shaped stitch that we haven't yet worked, and we're going to go from front to back in between the posts, round the back of the post and up between the next stitches. We're then going to yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and we're going to make a second one. So yarn over and do a front post treble from front to back to front again, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and because we want to change back to cream, we're going to drop our gentle jade behind the work and yarn over instead with our cream. Just remember to fasten off the bobbin. Once you've got your 2 front post trebles, we are going to work 11 half trebles in our cream colour. And on the 11th half treble, we're changing colour. So we're going to yarn over with our lights colour and pull through so that it's ready on our hook. We then want to work 6 front post trebles. So the first one is around a cream stitch, and the next 4 are around the ones we've already made. And you can see here, as we start working our front post trebles into the back post trebles underneath, it makes it even easier to see where we're working our stitches. So as ever in crochet, the setup and the initial few stitches can be a bit trickier. But once we get going and we've got a few more to work into, it's a lot easier to see where we're going. So that's my 5th, and I'm going to work a 6th around this cream post. Changing back to cream on the final yarn over. So essentially, every time we're working a right side row, we're working front post trebles, and when we're working a wrong side row, we're always working back post trebles. Once you've worked your second light, you'll be working 11 half trebles until you hit the next light. So again, we don't want to work into this stitch here because this post has just been used up. So it's this next clear 7 shape that we're looking for. On the 11th stitch, we're bringing in another new light. So yarn over that 11th half treble with your new colour, and make sure you're checking your pattern to see which colour you need at this stage, because yours might be slightly different from mine. We're then going to work 2 front post trebles, changing back to cream on the final yarn over. So continue working your round in this way until you've worked all of your lights, and you'll see that as you approach the end of your first side, you'll then have 3 half trebles left to work in cream before you hit your corner. So go ahead and continue working all the way along the first side. And as ever, when you reach a corner, we're working 1 half treble, chain 2, and 1 half treble for the corner. You then want to repeat what we've done along this first side, working in exactly the same way along the next 3 sides, introducing your new bobbins for the lights as and when you're instructed, and just making sure to keep tightening off your bobbins, keeping your yarns tidy, because if we get them crossed over, it's going to get us in a right pickle. So just remembering to keep our bobbins nice and tidy. Continue working the rest of round 5. And we'll work through one more row together just to remind us what we're doing with our back post trebles. So meet me back here for the start of your 6th round. As we begin round 6 together, you'll have turned your work and slip stitched into the corner. We're then going to do our chain 2, which counts as our half treble stitch. Going to work 3 half trebles in cream. Changing colour on the last yarn over of that last stitch. And bringing in our first colour for our lights, and yours might be a slightly different colour than mine. But we both want to make 4 back post trebles in our new colour. So again, as a reminder, for the back post ones, we're taking our hook to the back of the work, up between the posts, and then round to the back again. Then want to yarn over, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. So making sure that your tail ends are staying on the wrong side of the work. We're then going to do 3 more of those. So the next one is going to be around our colourful light. And if it helps, rather than sort of looking at your work like this, you can almost tip it over and then insert it behind that post there. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're going, when we're working our back post ones, we're going from the back, around the post and to the front. So whatever you kind of find to be easiest when you're looking at your work. And then yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. We're then going to make a 4th one, and that'll be around our cream post here. And on the final yarn over, we're changing back to cream. So let your bobbin come down on the front for this wrong side row. After you've worked your 4 back post trebles, we're going to work 9 half trebles to get us to the next light. We're then going to work 8 back post trebles, having yarned over and changed colour. So the first one's around the cream, six across the colour you're using for your light, and a final one around a cream stitch. Tighten up your bobbin a little bit. and we're changing colour back to cream on that final yarn over. Remembering to bring your bobbins onto the wrong side of your work. After you've worked that one, we've got another 9 half trebles until we hit our next colour. And then just as you did for your other light, we're going to work 4 back post trebles. Changing colour on the last half treble before you hit your light. So from back to front to back. And the final one is worked around a cream stitch. So carry on working the rest of your side, following the instructions, changing colour, always on the last yarn over of the stitch before you need your colour. And for this row, because it's a wrong side row, when we get to our lights, we're always working back post trebles. You can start to see here what I meant about the cute little sort of decoration that we're getting as we're using our cream floats. We're not breaking our yarn just because with managing the bobbins and having the sort of 4 sides to work around, it makes life much easier for us to just bring this yarn across. So after you've worked your last light in your row, you should have 3 half trebles left to work in A before you hit your corner. So go ahead and continue working to the end of this side. And when you hit the corner, as ever, we're working 1 half treble, chain 2, and 1 half treble into the corner. You can then carry on with the next 3 sides of your 6th round, working them in exactly the same way that we've worked this first round, always working our back post trebles when we hit the lights, and always bringing our bobbins onto this side of the work to keep things nice and tidy, this being the wrong side of our work. So here's a look at what it looks like on the front. As you approach the end of your 6th row, yours will be a little longer and you'll have a few more lights, but we'll be looking something like this. You'll also have a lot fewer ends than I have because I'm cheating and just working one side. I've got lots of ends, but you shouldn't have any of these going on. So you can see how our lights are starting to stagger outwards and form, and how our back post and front post stitches are sort of raised and adding that little profile to the front of the work. The nice thing about post stitches as well is they sit directly on top of each other, so it gives us a really nice symmetrical shape for our lights. We're going to continue following the pattern for the next couple of rounds, keeping a close eye on when you need to change your colours, when you're bringing them in, and you'll gradually start to see our work's going to get gradually wider as we're increasing at the corners, and our lights will continue to take shape. Once you've worked all 15 rounds of this week, your work is going to be looking a little something like this, but on a wider scale because you'll have 5 lights instead of 3. So we worked together in the video up to round 6. You've then continued through rounds 7, 8 and 9. When you hit the end of round 9, for the pink bauble, that's the point at which you need to fasten off. For the emerald one, because we're using the same colour as its little top, that one can stay attached, but for your pink coloured light, at that stage, you're going to fasten off your main colour because we're no longer going to need it. And similarly, when we reach this point in the pattern for the lights that are staggered slightly higher, we're going to fasten off the yarn and instead just going to bring in around 50 centimetres for the little emerald tops of our lights. You don't need to use a bobbin at this stage, I wouldn't say, because it's a much shorter length of yarn. We're only actually doing 4 stitches, 2 on the first row and then another 2 into the top as we come back along. So in terms of managing and it getting tangled, I wouldn't worry too much about trying to put that on a bobbin. You can just cut yourself a short length that we're going to work into. And then equally, once you've worked the final post stitches for the top of your lights, you can also fasten off all your emerald stitches, and then we'll have a little bit of weaving in to do on the back of the work where we've joined the first and the end colour, and then where we've joined our little emerald tops. So carry on working in this way, and you can join me back here to look through how we're going to work our surface crochet to do the really fun embellishment together when you're ready to do that stage. When you're ready to begin the surface crochet to join your lights together with their string, it's probably best at this stage to have woven in any tail ends from the colour changes to the lights, just to make sure we don't have anything getting in the way of our stitches as we work our surface crochet over the front of our work. So surface crochet is actually a really easy technique. We're pretty much just making chains but through the fabric as we go. So we're going to want to hold our hook on the front, the right side of the work, and then we're going to want to pick up our yarn from the underside of the work. So if you insert your hook, we're going to start together here in the top of a light, but if you take a little look at the larger blanket and how I've sort of worked the string there, we can take it round the corner if you want to join up all your panels, or you can just join from the first to the last light. You can do a very straight line if you want to, or you can do a few waves and curls. It's quite freeform, so it's quite up to you. If you'd like to exactly copy the design we've done on the blanket, then I'll show you how to do that. But essentially, to start off with, we're going to insert our hook from the front to the back of our work. And then we're going to yarn over on the reverse of our work and pull up a loop. So you've got now your hook on the front of your work, you've pulled up your yarn from underneath, and as we always do, just leave yourself a nice tail end so that we can weave in later on. And what we're looking to do is to insert our hook. We're pretty much going to work a surface crochet stitch over every row or over every stitch. So we don't want to make them too big, unless you want to play around with that. What I've done is I've done approximately a surface crochet stitch over a single stitch underneath. So take your hook back down. That loop that we've made stays on top of the blanket. We're then going to yarn over again on the underside and pull up a loop, and then almost like if you're slip stitching, I'm just going to slightly manually adjust this as it's the first one with my fingers. You're then going to pull that loop through the one on the hook. This one's a little loose just because we haven't yet secured that tail end. But that is essentially the technique we're going to use all the way through. Now, I do find it helpful to kind of be working in the direction that I want my line to go. So let's just do another one into the next sort of stitch over, working straight down from front to back, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then essentially slip stitch it through the one on our hook. And you'll see these kind of chains starting to form on the front of the work, almost like a really old school sewing machine when they didn't used to have a bobbin and they just had one thread. So if you then want to play around with a bit of a change in direction, we can just go down a row and one stitch over. Again, each time we're just sort of hooking. And what you might find as you get a little bit more comfortable is that you don't have to keep turning your work to find where the yarn is. If you're sort of holding it in your hand, almost like you would if you're preparing to crochet normally, you can allow your sort of hook to find the yarn underneath. So you can see here how it's starting to form. If you find that it's beginning to pull your work tightly, it's probably just because you're slip stitching too tightly. So try and work a little bit looser. So I'm going to aim here to do just a little gentle curve until I get to my next light. So I'm going to go 1 stitch over, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull through the one on the hook. I'm going to go down a row and 1 stitch over now. And again, sometimes I find it helpful just to make sure that you've got that yarn over in the throat of the crochet hook, and just angle it so that you're hooking it back through. And as ever, when we're doing a new technique, or if it's something you haven't done before, it might feel really strange to hold your yarn underneath the work in this way. But it's one of those where once you've done it a few times, it's going to start to feel a little bit more comfortable, and you can have a bit of fun with it and play around with changing the direction of your stitches. So I'm approaching now my second light. And I'm just going to work right up into the top of it, because that's what's going to give our string the illusion of holding all the lights together. So there we can see I've done one little wobbly line. And I think again the beauty with this technique is if we're not looking to do a dead straight line, a little bit of wobble and variation is exactly what we'd see from a string of lights, particularly maybe a string of lights that's been wound up in the cupboard for 12 months and then hasn't quite unkinked itself. So don't put too much pressure on yourself for it to look perfect. Again, it's one of those where when you're looking at your blanket and your string of lights as a whole, that lovely natural variation is what is going to make it look really authentic and just really unique to your blanket. If you want to create a little loop like we have on our blanket, then again we are just going to be aiming to move our hook 1 stitch or 1 row each time. And I mentioned it's quite helpful to be sort of working and holding your hook and yarn in the direction you want to go. So if you almost think about how a loop would look, it's probably going to come down, curl around, and then come back up again. So don't be afraid to kind of manipulate your blanket, move it around. It's not too large at this stage, which is why we're doing it. But if you need, for instance, to twizzle it all the way around, obviously yours will be a larger square than what I'm doing, but we're going to do this now before we join it to the rest of our blanket, just so that it's that bit more manageable. So I've gone down and I'm now working sideways, sort of twisting as I'm going. Always just working 1 stitch or 1 row. And we're going to loop the loop. And then we're going to go over the top there as a natural loop would before bringing it back up. Carrying on in a straight line. And again, if you take a little look at the main blanket, I didn't do a loop in between every single light. I think I aimed to do sort of 1 loop maybe per side. But it's up to you if you want a super loopy, swirly one. you will have ample of the emerald to play with to create that loop-the-loop effect. You could even do 2 next to each other if you want it to look like a little bow, or you could try and do 2 on the corners to look like a little bow. Again, as I said, if you want to bring it round, I kind of came round the corners and did a sort of gentle curve as I came round the corner and then worked all the way around. I'm going to show you how to finish off. So say for example, you didn't want to go around the corners and you wanted to end on your last light here. What you would want to do is, keeping your hook on the front of your work, cut the tail end, leaving it long enough to thread onto a yarn needle, and then we're going to pull the tail end all the way through to the right side. So you can see that that very last loop we made has now got this tail end coming up through it. Then it's just a case of threading that onto your yarn needle. And then we're going to take it back down through the work. So you can either go straight back down through that same stitch there, and then just as you would sew in any other ends, we're then going to secure it on the back of the work with a few stitches. So there we have it. That's how to add your surface crochet. And it's one of those things where you can see here, even where I was sort of starting my line here and showing you, and then I got a bit more confident and I got a smoother line here. Just give yourself a little bit of time and try to enjoy it as a fun experiment in doing something new. Like I said, we're not looking for a super straight, neat line. We want a lovely wibbly string that's going to join all our lights together. And I think it just adds a really fun finishing touch to the blanket. We're now ready to decorate the gingerbread house, and the first thing we're going to do is make our little door. So for this you're going to need your golden yarn to start off with, and also your cream yarn shortly. So using yarn B, we're going to begin with a chain of 9. So starting with a slip knot and chain 9. Once you've got your chain of 9, we're going to make 1 double crochet into the second chain from the hook. So as ever, we're not going to count the loop that's on our hook. So this would be our first and this is our second. So we're going to insert into that second chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2 for a double crochet. We then want to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 6 chains. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we should have 1 chain left, and into that last chain we're going to work 3 double crochets, and as we do so we're going to rotate our work. So we're not turning, but we're going to rotate it, because after the 3 double crochet in the top we're going to come back down the opposite side of our chain. So into that very last chain we want to work 3 double crochet. And we're now going to mirror essentially what we just did. So we're going to work 7 double crochet back along the opposite side of the chain. so that by the end of our first row, we will have a sort of shape with a curve at one end and a flat bottom. We'll have 17 stitches. So we did 7 up one side, 3 in the top, and 7 down the other side. We can now turn our work. And we're going to start with a chain 1, which doesn't count as a stitch. We then want to work 7 double crochets again. So because that didn't count as a stitch, we want to make sure the first one goes in that first double crochet there. We want to do 7 of those. Which has brought us back up to our curved top. And we're going to keep that curve, which means we need to work a couple of increases. So we want to work a double crochet increase 3 times. And that means essentially we want to work 2 double crochets into each of the next 3 stitches. So an increase in the first stitch, an increase or 2 double crochets in the second, and an increase in the third. And we should now have 7 stitches left on the opposite side, and we want to work 7 double crochet. On the 7th and last double crochet, we want to change to yarn A. So I've inserted my hook, yarned over and pulled up a loop, but rather than yarning over and finishing off with my golden, I'm instead going to bring in cream, and I'm going to yarn over and finish that stitch off in cream. So we can now cut our golden. We will need it again in a moment, but we can have a little tail end there to weave in. We've got cream on our hook, so we can turn, and we're ready to start our 3rd row. So again, we're going to start with a chain 1. And that doesn't count as a stitch, so we want to make 7 double crochets with the first one in that first stitch there. As we reach the top of our door, we're going to work some increases again to keep our curve. So you'll see that we've got some instructions in brackets. We want to work 1 double crochet in the next stitch, and then a double crochet increase in the stitch after that, and we want to repeat that stitch pattern 3 times. So that's 1 double crochet and then an increase, 1 double crochet and then an increase, and a 3rd time, 1 double crochet and an increase. We've then got 7 stitches left to work 7 double crochet. And on the 7th and final stitch, we're going to be changing back to golden. So we want to yarn over with golden to complete the final yarn over of that stitch. We can then fasten off yarn A, our cream colour, with a tail end, and you can turn your work ready to start the 4th row. So for the 4th row, using yarn B, we're going to begin with a chain 1 and work 7 double crochets. And then our stitch pattern to repeat 3 times around the top of our door is 2 double crochets. So that's 1 in each of the next 2 stitches, and then an increase. 2 double crochet and an increase. And for a third time, 2 double crochet. Sorry, I got ahead of myself and did an increase. 2 double crochet, so 1 in the next and 1 in the stitch after that, and then an increase, which should leave us with 7 stitches to work our final 7 double crochet. And on the very last one, we again want to make a final colour change back to A, or our cream yarn. So on the last yarn over of the last double crochet, we're going to bring cream back in, and you can cut your golden yarn. Chain 1 to start, and for our very last row we're going to do 7 double crochet, and then our stitch pattern that we want to repeat 3 times is 3 double crochet and then an increase. So that's 1, 2, 3, and an increase. And we're going to repeat that 2 more times. 1, 2, 3, and an increase. 1, 2, 3, and an increase. So lastly, we want to make 7 double crochet, and we don't need to colour change this time on the very last one of the round. Instead, you can yarn over to fasten off with a slip stitch. And in this instance, I would recommend leaving a really nice long tail end, which we can use to sew our gingerbread door to the house. So just pull the tail end all the way through to complete the slip stitch. Now, our door doesn't have a strict right or wrong side. I personally probably prefer this side a little bit more. I think it looks a little bit more like it's been iced with a wavy line, but it's slightly up to you. Just when you decide, make sure that you're clear which side you're going to sew your ends in on. So I'm going to show you next how we're going to make our little handle. And we're going to do a little surface bobble. So we didn't make it in the row whilst we were crocheting our house, but we're going to make it now and add it on just as a little detail for our door. So to work your surface bobble, we first want to make a slip knot on our hook. And we're going to keep our hook and our yarn on the front of our work. So we're going to insert the hook around the post of the stitch where we would like the bobble to sit, from the front to the back. So I feel like the door handle would be good on this cream stitch here. So I'm going to insert it from front to back and then up again around the post of the stitch. So a little bit like when we're making post stitches. You can then yarn over and pull up a loop, and then we can slip stitch that second loop through the first one on the hook. Once you're at this stage here, we then want to chain 3. And we're going to work a 3 treble bobble, so it's just a little one. We're going to begin with a yarn over, and then rather than going back into the gingerbread door itself, we're going to put our hook into the bottom of that slip stitch we just made. So into the sort of base of the slip stitch that we just made the chain 3 out of. And we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop, as if we're making a treble, and then yarn over and pull through 2. But we're not going to pull through the final loop, the final 2 loops, sorry, like we normally would. Instead, we're going to yarn over again, go back into that slip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, and then because we want it to be a 3 treble bobble, we're going to do that one more time. Yarn over, insert into the slip stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So once you have 4 loops on your hook, you can yarn over and pull through all of those loops. And then we want to chain 1 to secure our little bobble. So here's how it's looking at the moment. It's looking a little bit flat because we've essentially made 3 trebles together. So we're going to again slip stitch it around the post of a stitch, and we want to do that quite close to where we first joined it, because that's going to give it its curve. So I'm just going to go to the stitch immediately next to it, insert my hook from front to back around the post of the stitch, then yarn over, and we're going to pull that through, slip stitching through all the stitches on our hook. You can then yarn over a final time and pull through. Cut your yarn, leaving a tail end, and finalise that slip stitch by pulling it all the way through. So you've made a really cute little 3 treble surface bobble for our door handle. We're going to bring those 2 tail ends from the start and the end of the bobble onto the back of the work. So just insert your hook from back to front, yarn over and pull it through so that it's sitting on the wrong side of your work. And then if you want to, just to give it a bit of extra security, you can tie a little knot with those 2 tail ends, and then we will weave them in as well. So there's our little door with a cute surface bobble, and actually that's the exact same technique that we're going to use for our fairy lights on our house as well. To make our window, we're again going to need golden. We're going to start with a magic ring. So to make your magic ring, you want to leave yourself a tail end. You're going to hold your yarn between your thumb and your finger and wrap it round your fingers. We want to cross over at the back and then let the yarn sit parallel on the front of your fingers. We want to go under the first loop and grab the second loop and pull your hook through. So we create a little loop on the hook for us here, and I've got the magic loop wrapped around my fingers. You now slide your fingers out, and what we're looking for, I'm just going to chain 1 to secure, is a little loop like this. And the key to working into a magic loop is that when we make our stitches, we want to make them into the centre of the loop, but we also want to work over the top of this tail end, because that is the magic part. When we finish all of our stitches, if we can pull on that one, and it's going to cinch in our magic loop into a really tight circle. If the magic loop isn't something you're familiar with, or you're finding it tricky, for this window, you could also start with a chain 3 and then join it into a circle. But give the magic loop a go, because you'll see in a moment how clever it is. So we've started our first round with our chain 1. We're then going to make 6 double crochet into our magic loop or magic ring. So insert your hook into the middle, yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2. Insert into the middle, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And we want to do that 6 times. Once you've got your 6 stitches, if you could just hold the stitches that we've made and the hook to sort of stabilize them, and we're then going to pull on this tail end, which is going to close up our magic ring and pull all our stitches into a close circle. You can then slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet we made in order to join. For our second round, we want to start with a chain 1, and we want to work a double crochet increase 6 times. So essentially we want to work 2 double crochets into each of the previous 1 double crochets from the round below, so that by the end of the second round we'll have increased our stitches from 6 to 12. Once you've got your 12 stitches, we can again slip stitch into the first double crochet of the round to join. And actually that's us finished with our golden yarn now too, so you can do one more slip stitch to fasten off, and we can cut our golden yarn. For the final round of the window, we're going to be using cream. So bring in your cream and join it to a double crochet from the previous round. Insert your hook, yarn over with the new colour, and then pull up a loop. I'm going to chain 1 here, which I'm going to not count as a stitch. And instead I'm going to follow my pattern and work 1 double crochet, then 1 double crochet increase 6 times. So that's 1 double crochet into the first stitch and a double crochet increase into the next. And we're going to repeat those stitches in brackets 6 times. So 1 in the next one, and then a double crochet increase in the next. Once you've worked all the way around and you've got your 18 double crochet stitches, we can again slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet to join. I'm just going to double check my stitch count. So we're slip stitching into the top of that first double crochet, yarn over and pull through. And then we can also fasten off our yarn A here. So we're going to yarn over to do a final slip stitch, but we want to leave ourselves a nice long tail because we're going to sew it to our gingerbread house and also create a little bit of interest over the front of our window with a big long stitch. Once you've made your door and your window, we are going to sew them onto our blanket. So for the door, we want to sew it in the center of the gingerbread house, and I've sewed across the 5th to the 11th rows using the long tail end that we left. I'll show you on the video now how we're going to attach our window, and then you can go ahead once we've done the window together and use the same process to attach your door. So there's one finishing touch that we want to make for our window, and that's to sew ourselves a little cross all the way across the front of it. So we've already got our yarn attached here, and I've just threaded it now onto the end of my yarn needle. So I'm going to sew one long stitch straight across the middle. Then I'm going to come up again sort of quarter of an hour later, if you will, and then do exactly the same thing, taking it all the way up over the window as decoration. Once you've got your cross on your window, we are going to attach it across rows 15 to 17 of our house here. So counting up, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I want it around about here. I'm just going to check with my door that that's giving us enough space. What we want to allow for is a space for our door and also space to add our fairy lights. So once you're happy with your positioning, we are going to sew in and out of the stitches from the final round, the cream yarn, using our cream yarn on the hook. So let's take our hook, I'm so used to saying hook, we'll take our needle from the front of our work down through a cream stitch and through to the back of our house. Then we're going to come up from the back of the work to the front of the work, through the next cream stitch. And we're pretty much going to do that all the way along, going in and out of the cream stitches of the final round of the window, from front to back, and then bringing up from the back of our work to the front of our house again through the next stitch. And as I said, we want to do this all the way around until our window is attached. And when it comes to attaching your door, we're going to do the same thing. We'll use our long cream yarn that we left as a tail end, and we'll go in and out of the cream stitches, sewing through both layers. And I'm trying to keep it flat on the table, but obviously you don't have to do that when you're holding it. So if you need to manipulate your piece a little bit more, you could also try scrunching it up so you can hold it in your hand. It doesn't have to lie super flat while you're doing it, whatever you find to be easiest. So yes, as you're doing with the window, we're going to do with the door, focusing on that final round of cream stitches as our guide. So carry on in this way until you've sewn all the way around the window, and when you get to the end, you can weave in your tail end on the reverse of your work. Once you've got your window and your door attached, we are going to look at how to add the fairy lights to our roof, which, if it's not the cutest thing you've seen in a while, then it is for me. We're going to use bright lemon first. We'll then use our pink yarn and then gentle jade, and we're going to use them in that order as we go around our roof. We want to make 7 of them in total, and we want to place them approximately sort of 1 to 2 rows and 3 stitches apart, so really kind of staggering them like this around the roof. If you want to refer to the finished blanket for placement, then please do. We are going to do a 3 treble surface bobble in the same way that we did with our door, but I'll walk you through it again. I'm going to start with a slip knot on the hook and a long enough tail end to weave in later. And I'm going to place my first one around about here. So we're going to go behind the post of the stitch where we want to attach it, and back up to the front again, yarn over and pull through, and then slip stitch that second loop through the first one on the hook. We're then going to chain 3, We're going to yarn over to start our first treble, and we're going to insert it into that slip stitch that we just made. So we're inserting it into the bright lemon colour and not into the golden colour of the house underneath. We can then yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2 to start our treble, but we're not going to do the final yarn over. Instead, we're going to move on to the second of our 3 trebles. So yarn over again, back into that slip stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to do that one more time. Yarn over and insert into the slip stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So when you've got 4 loops on your hook, we are ready to yarn over and pull through all of our loops at the same time. So to secure our bobble back down onto our gingerbread house, we are going to again do a slip stitch around the post. Now, because we're working onto a base of treble stitches here, you don't necessarily have to go up a row into the next treble. You'll probably find that it's enough to slip stitch around the post of the same stitch because it's a treble and it's that bit taller. So insert your hook from front to back to front again around the post of the stitch, yarn over and pull that loop through and slip stitch to pull it through all the loops on the hook. We're then going to yarn over and do a final slip stitch to fasten off. So you can cut a tail end long enough to weave in and pull it all the way through to complete that slip stitch. And then just as we did with our little door handle, we'll then want to just hook our tail ends through to the back of our work. Pulling them through at different points. And then again, as we did, you can tie a little knot on the reverse of your work before weaving in your ends. So once you've added all your bobbles in the order we discussed, going from bright lemon to pink to gentle jade, and then back again as we come back down, you can also add a little surface crochet like we did. Very similarly to how we did the string of our lights, instead we're going to use our cream colour and we're going to work a surface crochet to create a gently curving line of strings for our fairy lights as well. And just as a reminder, when you're doing your surface crochet, unlike the bobble, which is all formed on the front of the work, you'll want to have your hook on the front of the work but your yarn on the back of the work for the surface crochet. So go ahead and decorate your gingerbread house, and I can't wait to see them all when they're fully iced. So you've now got everything you need to know to complete week 4. If you do find that this week takes you a little bit longer, please don't worry. Managing all those different bobbins, we want to do it slowly. We want to be able to work through in a nice steady pace because that is going to make life so much easier for ourselves. And if, for instance, you haven't yet decorated your house and that tips over into next week, then please don't worry. Everybody is working at their own pace. We're releasing the videos week by week, but there's absolutely no expectation that everybody will complete them week by week, which is why we leave the videos up and you can work on it at your own speed in your own time and enjoying it, because there's nothing worse than having to crochet under pressure or to feel like there's a time limit. Says me. So I've been really enjoying seeing all your posts in the group and all of your comments. You may have seen I've been popping in and answering questions, but I also wanted to thank you guys because it's a fantastic group at answering other people's and other makers' questions. Quite often by the time I get to it, it's already been answered half an hour or an hour beforehand. So thank you so much to everybody for being super supportive of each other and making it such a nice Facebook group to be in. I'm hanging out on Instagram a lot too. It's much more my sort of place where I tend to engage and chat with people. So if you do also want to reach out and say hello to me at Lottie and Albert and tag me in pictures on Instagram, or at Sirdar at Knit Sirdar if you want us to see your makes and for them to be reshared, or just so you can also look and see what everybody else has been up to on Instagram, then I'd love to see you over there as well. I'll see you back here next week for week 5. We've done a lot in week 4, but week 5 is going to be a super exciting one, so I can't wait to see you back here for that.